Something that's really been impactful for my life is storytelling. Life started with the word.
Yeah, facts.
Like God spoke.
Yeah, God spoke into existence. Yeah.
And it happened. Look how powerful, as children of God, look at the power we have with our words. We should take advantage of that.
And I'll add one, just from Catholic theology, philosophical standpoint, one of the things that makes us uniquely human, different than any other life form, is one, our ability to think, but then also because of that thinking, we're able to communicate. That's a part of our made in his image. And so the better we can communicate, the better we can share messages, the better we're kind of, in a sense, like operating in that like gift that God gave us, like that made us like him, you know?
Amen.
Yeah. There's a level of confidence in that, right? Like I know this information, right? Because if you don't really know it, then it makes it harder to communicate it.
Yeah, and then people can see that.
They
can see that lack of confidence in you.
But you have to be intentional, right? Because if there's a moment where you need them to focus in, you might intentionally drop down there, right? Like or even like physically, like, right? Like you see this with the greatest performers. There's the dance move, the hand goes up, so maybe people can practice their postures, right? Like looking in the mirror. Like I remember doing that, just practicing rhymes and stuff. Like, hey, how am I going to communicate? Looking in the mirror, or recording yourself and watching it back.
I'm a tall guy. Best case scenario, I need to get down to their level. So I literally kneel down.
This is what Catholic youth ministry looks like.
Exploring the 5 M's of ministry.
With Brandon Morel, also known as a symbol.
Yo, what's up, guys? Welcome back. This is what youth ministry looks like. And today I am talking with a good friend of mine, a brother of mine who we're going to dive in, who has been affected by youth ministry, is now sharing some messages with young people in secular and sacred spaces, So yeah, and we just going to jump into it. I got David Duncan with me. What's up, David? How you doing, bro?
Pleasure and honor, brother.
Yeah,
Glad to be here, man.
So let's do the quick introductions. Like, who is David? Let's give some context for people.
Okay, got you. David is a child of God. I'm a young man that was the youngest of 16 kids, the only child between my parents. I'm a first generation American. Both my parents are from Grenada. And I would say growing up in Brooklyn, New York during the late 90s was it wasn't easy, but I'm grateful for the village that I was raised in. I'm cradle Catholic, so born and raised in my home parish. And to become who I am today, it took a lot of people. It took a lot of people pouring into me. And fast forward to who I am today, hitting 30, I'm grateful for the life that I have, and I'm grateful for the lessons that was given to me to be able to pay that forward as a speaker now.
Yeah, man. Yeah. So, okay, let's unpack that a little more, because you say, I know, and this because I know about your story, right? So mom has worked at the parish, right? You've been a part of some programs,
sure.
Done some retreats. Let's talk a little bit to some of that stuff.
Got it. So my mom has been the secretary to this day, and to this day, she's been the secretary of my home parish since I was a kid, to this day. And it's crazy that there are so many different, I guess, blessings that's come to my life that I've known has happened because of her prayers and the prayers of the people in my home parish. And then as a young adult growing up in Brooklyn and Queens, as growing up part of the ambassador program, that was something that was somewhere that led me to learning about being a leader. And at this day allowed me to meet my wife, my fiance currently, my wife to be. We met during that program, and I've been in a place where I'm grateful because now I get to be part of the Alumni Association, be co-chair for the Alumni Association for the Vicariate of Black Catholic Concerns Ambassador Program. So.
Right. Kajanga retreats.
Kajanga retreats.
Yeah.
Oh man, and those are classic. And it's unfortunate that we don't have them in that space, but they were a 3-day retreat for young adults in Brooklyn and Queens where we would come and just, not make fun of it made us realize that being Catholic and being a young adult was something that could be fun. And it was a space where we got to learn more about our faith, but get to know that it was a community. It wasn't just us. It was also the fact of the people that were there to pour into us, but then also give us a safe space to be a kid. Like, growing up in New York City, you'll see a lot of this open space.
Tracks.
So thankfully, like during the summers, I would go visit my dad in Florida, so I got to experience outside of New York City as a young adult. But a lot of kids don't. A lot of kids don't get to see outside of Brooklyn, don't get to see outside of the Bronx or Queens. So it was a great space, and I'm grateful for the opportunity I'm grateful for the people that put themselves in those opportunities to give us those opportunities to see more than just the New York City boundaries.
Right. So I'm going to jump. Okay, that's some of the formation. That's some of the connection. And what are you doing specifically now?
Right now, so I own an educational consulting firm called David Duncan Associates. I am someone who is very curious, so I label myself as a curiosity specialist. I help schools and organizations spark positive curiosity in their scholars through restorative practices. Our restorative practices help students figure out who they are, what's possible in their life, and what to say and what to do to achieve what's possible.
Right. And I say that because I want to give context for people. We're talking about youth ministry as a whole, right? But I think sometimes we forget, like, ministry is service. Just simply put, right? Like, you go to McDonald's, you want service. You call, over the phone customer service, right? Like, there's a ministry part of that. And so, like, if we're people who are impacting our faith, we are impacting the world, right? In many ways. So, you get to do it, again, schools, community organizations, all of that. And I think there's some applicable things, working in youth ministry, one, being a product of it, right?
Of course. Yeah, I'm always.
But then, two, specifically what you go in do is you go in and speak in many cases. But before we get there, you were doing something else also before that I think can also inform this conversation a little bit more.
Yeah. It means, and like I said, storytelling, or something that's really been impactful for my life, is storytelling. From a young kid, even before ambassadors, and even in my home parish, there were men and women that I got to learn about what not to do and what to do from their stories. So that was where I became very curious about other people's stories. And just to put it simply like this, I saw somebody doing something and it made me realize that I can do that same thing too, only because they are doing it as well. And that's the importance of storytelling, the ability to show to each other that if somebody's doing it, the only difference between you and them is the fact that they had time and exposure to it. So prior to starting my firm, I worked in the entertainment industry for nearly a decade, working my way up from starting as security for Love and Hip Hop Atlanta, and then working my way all the way up to director of photography or a cinematographer, someone that in a space like this, it's funny being on the other side of the camera.
Yeah. You setting up the cameras and the lights and the backdrops and all of that, and capturing those stories on camera.
Exactly.
Right? Now, I say that because we talked offline, and anybody that's following, I have this theory that there's these 5 areas that come together to make this kind of home, right? Think of that little kid house, right? The little 5, the triangle on top with the square. And it's the 5 M's of youth ministry, which is the message, the music, the meeting space, the members, the mission territory, right? So I want to talk about specifically with you the message. Yeah. One, for us, is the gospel message and how we transmit that. It's our faith. But practical aspects of delivering messages that resonate with people, right? So we do that in our ministry spaces. You do it in schools. You're doing it in different. What are some practical tools? What do you some elements hey, a good message has these things.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
So feel like, first off, I do want to give you your flowers. This is a great way to help build youth ministry across our world because it's necessary. And not to say that, unfortunately, a lot of things that we do in our faith is very cookie cutter. This allows it to not be cookie cutter. And I'm grateful that you're doing this. So I'm grateful to be a part of the process with this. So first thing when it comes to messaging, I think the first important part is to realize that there is parts to it. I've learned the saying that what entertains you trains you. So if you're not somebody that is aware of what's entertaining you, it's training you to be who you are. So that's also to the level of your exposure. So I like to always break down communication into 3 things. Communication is first our body language, our tone of voice, and then the words we actually say. And there's a lot of statistics, there's different variations of the numbers and things like that. But one of the craziest things that I learned about that the first 2, body language and tone, takes up 90% of our communication. And then we realized that people are so caught up in the words that we're not even worried about the words, but if somebody says something to me in an aggressive tone and aggressive body language, being from New York, you already know.
Yeah, facts.
That's not something you want to play around with. So the first practical thing I always want to tell people is that when it comes to storytelling, you have to know your audience. You have to know where they're coming from, because then that allows it to not be cookie cutter, and you can give them a message in which they can relate to. So storytelling is something that is been around from before hunters and gatherers.
Yeah, the beginning, bro. Yeah. Back in the tribes, right?
Come on now.
That was literally a role. Someone was the storyteller of the tribe. Yeah.
The person. And that their role was so important to culture, society, because they passed down lessons, stories, different exposures to things that people would have never known about if not for that person that passed around those stories. So people need to take pride and understand how powerful their stories are when they talk about it, when they come to messaging.
Right. Okay. So I love the line. Well, entertains you, trains you. Right. That's bars. Like, I've used this term before, edutainment.
Yes,
right.
exactly.
So, like, even when you're just listening to music, even when you're watching a movie, there's a train of thought. And being a cinematographer, you get to see, like, yo, the way the light is set up, where the product is placed on the table. All of those things are intentional. The colors that are used, all of it is intentional to convey a particular message to a particular person, to influence them in some type of way.
Yeah. And even funny enough, actually, bringing up my cinematography background, I like to break it down into 3 parts. You know, production is pre-production, production, post-production.
Mm-hmm.
No one ever sees everything from pre-production to post-production. We only see what post-production produces.
Yeah.
So it's always, let's put it like this, idea is pre-production. Production is the actual execution of that pre-production.
Mm-hmm.
Then post-production is the curating of what the message, like the visual elements of the pre-production. So ideas come to reality through those 3 things: pre-production, production, post-production.
That's good. That's good. I'll go back to, like, because what you were saying again, like, you have the tone, right? Posture, all of these things, how they affect. And I remember, like, being back, like, doing rap music, doing spoken word poetry. Like, we used to train. I remember, shouts out to Jive Poetic, where we would, like, say, we would do, okay, you're gonna do the song, do it a cappella. Standing this way, then you're gonna stand this way, then you're gonna stand like this, then you're gonna use your hands in a particular way, you're gonna point at this moment, and all of those things evoke emotions connected to the words themselves.
Exactly.
And I find, particularly in youth ministry, or particularly, let's just say, in church, right? I think sometimes we're so focused about the theology, which is super important. Super important. Like, the actual words we're saying is super important, and sometimes we're less concerned of how we're saying those things.
Because the delivery is everything, man.
Yeah.
Delivery is everything. Because if I deliver a message to someone that is not receptive to the way I delivered it, I'm literally wasting my breath, unfortunately. But not to say that the audience, there's not somebody in the audience that's not going to get it. And that's something we were just talking about as well, is like, it's really about that one person. There's always going to be that one person, regardless if you're talking to a room full of thousands or just a room full of maybe hundreds, even tens of. It's about the person in that seat that gets the message.
Yeah, I think when I was studying stuff about just the business side of things, right, and marketing, right, you have this idea of target market, right? So, like, okay, I'm going to think of what is the age range, what is the cultural makeup, what's the ethnicity, where do they live, like, all of those things. I'm going to narrow it down. And I remember I took this marketing class one time that said, like, the goal is not to be a shotgun and try and hit a large group of people, but to be like a sniper and, like, zoom in on a very specific spot and hit that. And if you hit that perfectly, then you know you marketed correctly, and then it goes from there. So, again, I'm talking about marketing and all that stuff, but again, if we believe what we say we believe, how we, like, zoom in and, like, hit perfectly spaces so that it resonates is important.
It's super important. And then to that point of, like, being so specific about who you're talking to, that plays into the message. That plays into the fact of, I know their pain points, because this is where messaging really plays its part. I think it's very important to understand the pain points of your audience, because the pain points of your audience allows you to craft a good message. Like, knowing the stories that they're experiencing, because every story has a life lesson you have in it. Mm-hmm. And if we get to And it's funny, I'm actually doing a devotional right now where it's the storyteller. And in this book we call our Bible is something filled with different stories.
Yep.
Filled with different stories. And
Yep.
these stories impact us in different ways, but they're full of lessons, especially when Jesus was here. Like the lessons and the information that he gave through parables are the ways that we as youth ministers, leaders, and people that impact other people's lives, we have to use the same, let's say, blueprint of taking the stories of people that are experiencing things and give them the lessons that they needed. And I mean, Jesus definitely used parables in like a high level.
Oh yeah, facts.
Super high level. But when we talk to kids, you got to break it down to a place where they understand it. So using things that they can relate to, like TikTok, using to the fact of maybe starting off a story like, hey, I was on TikTok the other day and I came across a video. They know, they've been on the other side of going across TikTok and coming across a video.
Or even naming like, hey, you notice this trend? Boom. Oh yeah. That creates a call and response, an energy dynamic. Yeah.
And they're engaged at that point because now they realize you're talking to me as someone that has been where I've been. And at the end of the day, nobody cares if they don't know that you care. Like bottom line, like it's something that I realized growing up, especially, and I definitely want to bring up the point of realizing that when I was young, I was very shy, low self-esteem, had a very easy to like basically hold myself back from the things that I was curious about. But at some point in my life, I realized I have to gain my own level of curiosity through putting myself in exposure points. So points of exposure where I'm learning about how that person got to that point. And I think that's like the essence of networking, like being able to see like, or ask somebody, how did you get here? What were you going through that allowed you to be exposed to the thing that you're doing now? And then obviously the journey from when you didn't know anything about it to when you are as an expert right now.
Right. So asking the good questions and kind of getting curious in a sense about that. And you were talking about pain points, but I think even what you were saying about like, you know, the interactive, knowing their world, right? There's a term. So where I learned it from was from the arts side of things, right? So like, again, whether that was music, whether that was, you know, I was played in the band when I was a kid, did art, we did acting on stage. There is this thing in theater called breaking the third wall, where what that looks like is when I do this. If I look at the camera and I talk directly to you, right? Now I am breaking away from this conversation here to talk directly to you. You know what's a good example? Dora the Explorer. When she goes, hey guys, say swiper, no swiping, right? That's breaking the third wall. You see this in Deadpool. You see this in all these other things. Now, you can do this when you're delivering your message, right? It's like, oh, okay, now I'm going through the points, boom, boom, boom. Now I need to talk to you as a person directly and make sure that you understand what's happening here, right? Yeah.
And even to that point of breaking that third wall, it's really important that somebody knows that you have been where they've been. Because
relatability factor, yeah.
Always relatability. Because I've learned that, I mean, there's something that we all know is going to happen. Our day is going to come where we're not on this planet. But there's going to be more than the money, more than the thing that you create. But people are going to remember how you made them feel. And if you make people feel like they are being seen and heard, that's the most powerful thing to do in the world. And that's the point of a good story or a good message, is being able to tell somebody that I've been where you've been. I'm allowing the grace of God to, you know, give me sight to see me through these situations. But you may be in a spot where you was at when I was maybe a year ago, but that gives me enough. My testimony is something that I can give to you to know that, hey, you can make it through this journey.
Well, that's scriptural in and of itself, right? Like Revelation, they overcame by the blood of the Lamb and the word of their testimony. It's important, the stories that we're sharing, right?
Even to a point of that, because that's something I use especially when I speak to faith-based organizations. It's 3 levels that I talk to: is level of belief, level of faith, and the level of witness. That's something that is like core in my messaging. Every time I talk to students, it's always about everybody believes. Like, obviously, as a cradle Catholic, I didn't really know what my faith was, but because my mom made me go to church, I believe God was real. But then I got to a point where I was experiencing life where then I moved from belief to then faith. Faith knowing that I'm seeing the actual remarks and movement of God in my life. But then now as a speaker, And even as someone that just growing through the ambassador program, growing through Kajanga, I became someone that could give witness through my testimony and say to others, like, especially those who do believe and those that don't believe, is that I am a witness to what God has done to me, or done for me and put me through, because he made me a better person and helped me build character.
I want to pause for a brief moment to let you know that this series was brought to you and it was produced by Kari Films. Kari Films is a Catholic media production company whose mission is to capture the beauty of the Catholic faith. They do this through capturing live events. They do this through podcasts, testimonials, music videos, and more. You can find out more about them in the description below. Now let's get back to it. I want to talk specifically curiosity specialist for a second, right? So curiosity. Now, I'm gonna paint the picture for people, right? You hear about something. You saw a video. I remember actually, I went to the movies the other day and I saw something, and immediately I went to like, hold up, what is that all about? Immediately what we do is we search, right? So like, there's a natural part of learning that happens. And in fact, this is another thing that happened recently where I've been sharing with this group of students about faith, and they asked themselves like, hey, one kid raised his hand like, hey, where can I go buy a Bible? And it was like, and when I shared it, like, this is more powerful than me showing up with a box, because now from that one kid asking, I was like, wait, I want one too. Hold on, because now they want it. There's a desire for it.
Great.
So curiosity is important in this,
super.
Because when we share messages, how do we like spark that? How do we dig that out of them when now they want the message that they're coming?
That's a great. That's actually why I call myself a curiosity specialist. I think by the basis of my questions that I ask, because I don't feel like I talk to students. I have a conversation with them. At the end of the day, we're having a conversation. Maybe if it's the question, obviously it may be one of me and then multiple students, but every time I curate any of my conversations with them, it's more of then they can walk away with actual questions that they probably should be asking themselves. And like you said, we're in a day and age and moving forward into a day and age where the time between curiosity and reality is getting shorter and shorter, especially with technology. There was a day, I remember growing up, where you had to go to the library and get into an encyclopedia.
Yeah, facts.
Who does that now?
Yeah. You had to go through the years, go through which, I
don't gotta do none of that.
Alphabetical.
I don't gotta do none of that. I could go in my phone, in my pocket, and look up whatever I need. And then I can go talk with AI, which can now go through, has data for days about things that I wouldn't even know, but I'm curious enough to go figure it out. And that's the driver. I think that's what I try to make the point of when somebody asks me, what is a curiosity specialist? A curiosity specialist is someone that asks questions and has thought-provoking conversations with them. And one of the quotes that made me really get to this point as a curiosity specialist is by Tupac. And he was saying, I may not spark the brain that changes the world. Well, yeah, I may not spark the brain that changes the world.
I mean, this is literally my story, bro. Yeah. Like, I remember being in middle school and I heard this. I may not be the one to start the revolution, but I guarantee you I will spark the mind of the one that will.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And that's the pain, because as Tupac said it, that was the pain that most people have. Like, we think like we have to be the person to save the world, but we can save. And even and it's funny, I was literally just talking about this on a Speak Life tour that I was on. It's speaking life, but life and death is in the power of the tongue, and that's scripture, and that's something that I've realized is so important with how we interact with ourselves, especially with our self-talk, because honestly, it's a cycle. Like, what we believe in our brain comes out through our mouth, and then if it continues to come out through our mouth, it goes back into our brain, but then it seeps into our heart, and that what's in our heart continues to create that cycle of, okay, it goes back up to our brain. This is what our brain thinks. And then we say those things out loud, because I think this is probably one of the things that I really love about our scripture is that, and we were there when I kind of brought this up to the students, but it was like, life started with the word.
Yeah, facts.
Like, God spoke.
Yeah, God spoke into existence. Yeah.
And it happened. Look how powerful, as children of God, look at the power we have with our words. We should take advantage of that.
And I'll add one just from Catholic theology and philosophical standpoint. One of the things that makes us uniquely human, different than any other life form, is one, our ability to think, but then also because of that thinking, we're able to communicate. That's a part of our made in his image. And so the better we can communicate, the better we can share messages, the better we're kind of in a sense like operating in that like gift that God gave us, like that made us like him,
Amen.
you know?
Amen.
Yeah.
And even thinking about the word amen, I think there's like, it's already done. I guess this is a good story that I like through my devotional I was reading, is about when Jesus came across a centurion and he was saying about how his servant is so sick right now. And Jesus says to them, okay, show me where he is. I'll come and heal him. The centurion, and this is something that we say every day in mass still to this day. And that was like so powerful to me. It was like, I'm not worthy that you enter under my roof, but say the words and my servant shall be healed. But we changed it to our soul shall be healed.
Right.
But that's so powerful that even Jesus at that moment was like, I've never seen faith like that in Israel, that by what you just said, it's already done. And he was like, within the hour, his servant was healed.
Yeah. Just at the word spoken. Right.
And that's how powerful things are when we come to our message and like the words we use in our messaging, because we are speaking life into people.
Right. So let's talk a few practical tips, like crafting a message. Okay, you believe this, you have faith, you want to give witness, you want to share what it is that you have with young people. What are some like things that people need in that toolkit?
So everything in life, we need to have three things. We need to have, and you can tell it's always a kind of like a three thing kind of thing with me. But one of my coaches told me this: you need a mindset, you need a skill set, and you need a toolkit. You always need those three things when you're talking to students. So like, what's the mindset you want them to lead with? Now, then what is the skill that you're going to use? I mean, obviously we're talking about messaging. So let's say storytelling. The mindset that I want to have students leave here with is a curiosity, a level of curiosity that makes them not just rely on somebody telling them what to do, but them going after it themselves.
Right.
Then I start to give them a skill set. A skill set could be that curiosity, looking things up, going after things, or asking the right questions, networking. Even then, creating a community, because realistically, school sets us up to realize how to talk with people that are like us, but the world is really set up about interacting with people who are from different backgrounds than us, maybe older or younger than us, and maybe even grow up in a different way than we did. So we need to know how to curate our conversations, and that's part of the toolkit, because the right skill set, or your skill set, would determine what your toolkit is. And now let's go to the toolkit. The toolkit is now what I mentioned in the beginning: knowing your body language, knowing the tone of voice you have, and then understanding the words that you use to kind of put a bow on that box.
Right. So there's a level of confidence in that, right? Like I know this information, right? Because if you don't really know it, then it makes it harder to communicate it.
Yeah, and then people can see that.
They
can see that lack of confidence in you.
Yeah, I mean, there's some basic ones when you said like even posture, body language, right? Like, yo, I remember like, yo, put some bass in your voice, poke your chest out. Like it communicates something different than if I was to be here the entire time, right? Like it's
but if that's the vibe you're going for,
yeah. But you have to be intentional, right? Because if there's a moment where you need them to focus in, you might intentionally drop down there, right? Or even like physically, like, right? Like you see this with the greatest performers. There's the dance move, the hand goes up, so maybe people can practice their postures, right? Like looking in the mirror. Like I remember doing that, just practicing rhymes and stuff. Like, hey, how am I going to communicate? Looking in the mirror, or recording yourself and watching it back, right? You have any other ideas for like posture things?
Well, definitely when it comes to posture, it depends on your group, because even yesterday I was talking to a group of kindergartners. I'm a tall guy. Those kindergartners are not even 3 feet tall yet. So best case scenario, I need to get down to their level. So I literally kneel down and I'm talking to them so I can be eye level with them, and them understand that they don't have to look up to me. I'm a human being just like they are. But I was in their spot, but now me getting down to their level makes them feel a little bit more comfortable. It breaks that wall down. And then that's the thing we need to understand about when it comes to our posture and our tone. We need to be able to break those walls. And there's importance in knowing that if I'm talking really loud at somebody and it's almost at a disrespectful manner, nobody's gonna care about what I said. They took it as disrespect. But even if I talk too low and somebody's not hearing me, that's not going to help the conversation either. So it's finding that healthy medium. And like you said, it's about practice. I mean, Kobe Bryant is one of my favorite players. God rest his soul. And that's something that I loved about his character in the world that he played, is his level of commitment to practice. And there was never a shot that he took that he felt like he couldn't take, because he already in the game when it really mattered, because he already practiced it thousands of times when nobody else was looking.
Right.
So it's always important that you're working on the craft of how do I deliver this thing. And I mean, at some point, there's muscle memory kicks back in.
Right.
So it's really, and it was something we talked about too, is like, came across a video where put it more in it's the rule of 100. If you can dedicate 18 minutes, 16 to 18 minutes to a discipline for a year, that's 100 hours. That will make you 95% better than anybody else.
That's good.
It's just, that's some practical things. And that's 18 minutes, we get caught up in a scroll longer than that.
Yeah, facts.
So if you anything, you can give 18 minutes to get in a little practice in. That's even something now it's funny because now I'm interacting with the game of basketball in a different way now, being that I played through high school. It's funny enough, that story of me starting only at 10th grade and then playing all 4 years through college. Now I'm refereeing games and realizing that practice of getting in the mirror and making a call, putting my hand up, making sure I'm practicing my mechanics. Same idea. Life leaves a lot of clues for us, a lot of success clues for us. And it's all about practicing the mechanics.
Right. Now, just strategy, right? Because there's a way of, I know I have my strategy. Do you have anything like in your own, like, okay, I need to craft this message for school. I need to craft this message for a confirmation group. I need to craft this message for whatever, right? Yeah. Like how do you go through that?
I usually talk with the decision maker and try to find out what are the students already struggling with. If I find out what they're struggling with, that kind of helps with my story bank. Because I'm not someone that always needs to, I haven't been this type of storyteller where I have to have everything written down like a script so I can memorize it. That kind of brings up a nervous setting in me. But I realize it's talking about by points. So if I realize what are the pain points of their students, then I realize, okay, what are the things that I need to work on? What are the stories that in my life that I can use and I call that my story bank. Everybody has a story bank. Everybody has life testimonies that they can use as an opportunity to help others. So I usually just, from the pain points that I understand from the decision makers and how much time I have with them, and then I ask to the decision maker, okay, what is something that you really want them to leave away with? Now I have my pre-production, production, post-production.
That's dope.
So the pre-production is finding out their pain points. The production is my story banks, how I'm going to execute those pain points and solutions to those pain points through my production. And post-production is finding out how do I need to land the plane?
Yeah.
What do they need to leave here with?
Right.
And that's kind of it's funny how I leave that production. That's still my production background playing this part.
Yeah. No, I love that idea about the story banks. Because, I mean, story banks is personal stories you've heard from other people. It's movies you've watched. You can draw from all these things and find.
It makes it authentic.
Yeah.
Because at the same time, when people realize when you start talking, people are going to notice how comfortable you are with saying that story. And if you're somewhere where you have to read it off a script, crowd control is super important when it comes to kids too, because there's kids that have questions in the middle of your conversation. And if you are someone that's based off a sketch, like a script, if somebody throws you off your script, you're kind of a little flustered. But if it's a story bank, it's based off your memory, and you could kind of, based off what their reaction to you about saying it or facial expressions or things like that, you could then realize, okay, I need to shift this story a little bit.
Yeah. I mean, for me, and I've talked you through this because particularly in the youth ministry thing, the goal is you have these teaching points you want to get through, right? Like, okay, I need you to know this about our faith. I need you to know this about God. I need you to know this about the sacraments. I need you to know this about scripture, whatever, right? So I kind of reverse engineering to say like, okay, I need to get you to this teaching point, and I need to leave you with a way that you're challenged, you can practically apply whatever that teaching point is, right? So I reversed that, and I heard this initially from a teaching about stand-up comedy. But when I heard it, I was like, I've been doing this all my life, rapping. Like, this is set up, punchline, setup, punchline. So setup is grabbing the attention. Punchline is that moment you shift subtly and it creates that, oh, ah. In comedy, that's what makes you laugh. That's the moment it goes, ha, 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 boom, right? Makes you go, oh, like in a rap battle, right? That's the punchline moment. So the setup punchline is, in my brain, I'm connecting to yours, is like, that's how do I utilize my story bank? And then what is the thing that I'm going to pull from that story? That's the switch that gives me a moment to then get across this teaching point and this challenge or this question for them.
I actually have a more practical way for your audience as well. Thinking about it like this, and I learned this from my coach as well, because I have a lot of mentors, a lot of coaches when it comes to the speaking thing, you as well, and I really appreciate that. I want to put this on camera, that I appreciate all the game you've given me as a speaker. Something I've learned is like, it's the thing that you make them do, like grab their attention, like you said, the setup. But then it's the setup, which is the opening act. Then it's the transition to the introduction, which is kind of talking about what we're going to learn from this conversation. Then you transition from that to the body. Then you place so it's hit, you go opening act, the transition to the introduction. You state the introduction. Then from the introduction, then you have a transition to the body, which could be another story. So this is where I'm always placing my stories. I'm opening up with a story. Then that transition to the story kind of explains what I'm trying to get across from that opening into my introduction. The introduction explains itself. Then I take another story to take the transition from the intro to the body. Now the body's here. I'm talking about what I need to be talking about, the pain points that I got from the decision makers. Now I'm taking that body. Now I'm taking another transition to get to a place where I'm landing the plane. Make them remember me. Remember, like you said, challenge them, give them something practical they can leave here with. Because at the end of the day, if any story we tell each other, there has to be a point for it.
Yeah.
There has to be a point. If there's no point of the story,
moral of the story.
Yes.
Yeah,
That's why it's there.
Story is.
That is why it's there. Then we land the plane. And that's the point of any conversation I try to have with any group of students. Why are we here? What are we trying to get from this?
That's a good structure. And I know, and we're going to start landing this shit, but the traditional storytelling is the exposition, rising action, right? Climax, falling action, into the resolution, right? That's a typical, like, okay, exposition, I'm giving you the ideas, the concepts, the people, the setting, whatever, right? The rising action is where I introduce conflict, right? The climax is the moment where that conflict hits its height. The falling action is like, okay, that conflict is now starting to de-escalate. There's a switch. There's something that happens that brings us into the resolution at the end, right? But what's interesting is that because of the way in which people communicate now, social media, technology, etc., we don't have as much time to get through that arc, right? So there's like the who, what, when, where, why, right? Right? So what you're gonna give typically when you do the exposition is like, okay, you're giving the who, you're giving the when, you're giving the where, right? And then, but instead, you want to kind of jump to the meat. You want to start at the what, right? To capture that attention is, boom, got you. Then I'm going to give you context. Then I'm going to give you the who and the when and the where. Then here's the what. This thing happens. Boom. It's a way of kind of that kind of double Dutch, jump back and forth, grab the attention of those you're giving the message to.
And I definitely want to make sure people understand that, messaging involves a lot of talking, but God gave us 2 ears and 1 mouth. We need to listen. We need to listen first. Because if we're talking about stories that nobody cares about, or nobody feels connected to.
Right. I mean, I'll say it because I'm in a church setting. Too many times we use, and I'm talking about, again, particularly a lot of inner city, or particularly like this, I went to this foreign country on this trip and did this thing. That goes over so many kids. Could there be some lessons? Could you do that? Is there a way or proper placement of that? Sometimes, sometimes, right? But on the average day-to-day, average kid, you may want to start with, this happened when I walked down the street. This happened when I talked to my mom. This happened, however, but make it a more daily life rather than something that's so abstract and out there that wouldn't be that goes back to the beginning of this conversation where they feel like they can relate to it.
Yeah, and it's important because even with the influx of technology, we have lost our ability to be bored. And being bored is where true curiosity starts. It's being able to say to ourselves, I don't know what to do with my time, but our mind's running. It's thinking about different processes and things like that. It's unfortunate that, and this is where I usually try to challenge students, because I ask them questions in the middle of my conversations with them. And if they tell me I don't know, I double down. Why are you, I don't know? You know something. You can't tell me you don't know. You know something.
Yeah.
You know everything about this song. My mom says that to me all the time. And I used to joke about, I used to like not like it, but as someone talking to students, I don't let them slide on that no more, because we have every chance to figure out what you need to know. So at this point, if they tell me I don't know, that's not true. You do know something, but you're not giving yourself the space and the opportunity to be bored or curious enough to go figure it out.
And go think. Yeah. And come up with the creativity in that too.
Oh man, critical thinking is lacking right now. It's unfortunate, brother. It's unfortunate. And that's why I'm here. That's why I created my firm. Not just to pay it forward, but to address those 3 problems: low self-esteem, lack of critical thinking, and the fear of public speaking.
That's good. All right. Any final practical tips before we close this all out that you think that people need to know in delivering their messages, particularly in our youth ministry spaces?
This is from a very powerful man that I've been listening to. His name is Myron Golden. And it talks about the structure of be, do, have. You must be the person that does the thing to have the results that you want. So make sure you are being the right person. That's character development. And character development comes through a lot of things. It comes through reading your scripture, experiencing life, how you're reacting to these struggles and challenges that you are faced with, because every struggle and challenge that God has placed you through, they're there to build a lesson in your life. And if you don't pass that lesson, it's going to continue to keep coming up. That test is always going to be there. And I think that's something about life that I'm learning today. Like, life is going to give you the test first and the lesson afterwards. So you got to figure it out. Then doing a thing, being able to say, don't teach something that you haven't done. Because you can sense that authenticity in you, that level of confidence that we talked about.
Right.
And then having is dreaming. Having some level of curiosity that you got to a reality that you could see in someone else. And first and foremost, know that you are being the person that student needs, but don't take advantage of that situation by thinking that you are older than them and you just got to tell them what to do. We are living through a time in the age where, hey, I was just listening to something about it. It was talking about AI, and it's saying this is jump ball. The game is leveled now. There is no waiting. You can figure out whatever you need to go do right now. So there was a time in the world where people used to hate people enough and tell them, like, I don't want you to read and write. But there is no waiting on that no more. Unfortunately, there is a lack in students that know how to read and write, and we're working on that through my firm as well. But there's plenty of other people doing that as well, and we have to band together and connect. So like I said, or just like off of doing your research, figure out who you are, figure out what you've gone through, and use those stories as a touch point for those students to figure out, okay, this is how I'm going to gain a better faith, a stronger faith.
Yeah. It's security in your identity first. That's the B, right? And then you do the thing, and then you get the results that you want from all of that. Cool. Thank you guys for watching this one. Pray this was helpful. We could do this all day. We pray as you start crafting your youth ministry messages that this helps you start thinking about how can you be more effective in getting that message across, right? There's so many resources about the actual content, the actual words, the actual theology, right? But what we wanted to do is give you some of the practical application for that. If you want to check out David, I'll have all that stuff in the description. You can connect on all that level. And we'll keep going, man. Learn more about the 5 M's of ministry. Yeah, we're going to do this. God bless y'all. Peace. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe to this channel so you can find out more about when these videos come out. And head over to bethesymbol.com where you can sign up for the email list and find out more about the 5 M's of ministry.